Having found the perfect pork, I thought the next step would be simple, but months of experimentation later, and the recipe was still proving elusive. The other thing that I've completely changed my thoughts on is filler. I thought at the beginning of this journey, well, if I'm going to try and make the perfect banger, I don't want any filler because filler's cheap and nasty, and it's something that mass-produced sausages contain because you don't have to use as much meat and replace it with cheap old filler. But you know what? There's something about the texture and an element of flavour that the filler brings to the sausage that for me just makes it a banger. In here, I've toasted some bread, just plain old British sliced bread. What's important though is it has to be toasted all the way through, completely dry. And that goes into a container and then covered with hot water. And we'll leave that to infuse for about an hour. During that time, all that flavour from the toasted bread is going to permeate the water. After an hour, strain it through a fine sieve, make sure you press to get all of the juices out, and we end up with this, toasted bread flavoured water. This really, for me, is the heart of a banger. Now, to this I'm going to add some rusk. And then all of my seasonings. I've got some black and white pepper, some ginger, nutmeg, and mace. Here's some golden syrup. This is going to add some colour, and also the sweetness is going to balance with the spices really well. I now need to put this in the freezer. It's really important when making sausages. You keep all of the ingredients and the equipment as cold as possible, but without freezing. Now for the meat. This pork's from a middle white pig, and I've gone for leg. The reason I've chosen leg is because the muscle structure in the leg has a very good ability to hold on to moisture, and that's going to mean our sausage is going to be much more succulent. Salt. Now we need to blend the salt and the meat together. What's happening here is the salt's pulling the proteins from the meat, and that's going to make the whole mixture bind together and emulsify, and that will help give us the texture of the banger that we're really looking for. The friction of the blades going through the mixture and cutting the protein strands creates heat. It only takes a couple of minutes to heat the meat up. We're at 10 degrees now, which is as warm as you want to get it. Now, it's got to go straight back in the freezer. Here's some that I've already chilled. And here's the toasted bread mixture, also pre-chilled. When I think of a banger, I think of me as a 6, 7, 8-year-old in the garden with a mate. You'd build a fire. But there was something about that smoky flavour and the smell of the fat from the sausage dripping into the fire. And then I thought, well, if we could take some fat, because fat's really good at soaking up flavour, and I just cook some fat over a fire. I'm kind of capturing my memory of that fire into the sausage. For the recipe, I've now pureed it. It's important that this is at room temperature. If it's too cold, it'll be too hard and it won't emulsify with the rest of the ingredients. And fat's essential for a banger. For me, a banger isn't a banger without fat. It's also a wonderful carrier of flavour. Finally, just to reinforce that bready flavour, I'm going to put a couple of slices of bread in. Now we need to blend all of these ingredients until we've got something that resembles a dense, thick puree. If you've got too many ingredients in here, it will take longer and longer to mix, and the longer it spends in here, the warmer it's going to get. Keep it below 10 degrees centigrade or as cold as possible. Pack the mixture as tightly as possible into a sausage stuffer with no air pockets, or your bangers will bang. Next, take some natural sausage casings. Wash carefully both inside and out, since they come packed in salt, which needs removing. You see the water running down the inside. Wash the salt out. Feed the casing onto the nozzle and leave to soak for 5 minutes in cold water. Once attached, make sure the end of the nozzle is clear and force the meat through until it appears. Then put a knot in the casing and continue forcing the meat through. Work quite quickly. When all is done, tie a knot in the other end, then squeeze and twist to create your bangers. Alternate the direction, so clockwise with the first one, anti-clockwise with the second. And there we are.